Hello and welcome to the SuperShow podcast. Today I am your host, Alex Jones, and I am being joined by two absolute chocolate starfishes of the gaming world. I'm talking about Jamie and Chris.
Hi. Wow. Thanks for that glowing introduction.
I'm definitely the hot dog flavored water. I don't know what you're talking about. My water only ever tastes like hot dogs. My hot dogs specifically.
Wow.
I'm glad to hear it. It is good to see you guys after 2 weeks. I've not seen you to talk to you at length about the biggest thing that's probably happened to PlayStation this year, of course, which is God of War Ragnarok, which we're going to be talking about a little bit later on, fellas, because the gaming awards are nearly here. Are you excited?
Yeah. Actually, I think more so than any other.
Not you. There was no excitement in that response whatsoever. There was nah, not really.
No,
yeah.
Well,
have you ever really, honestly been excited about the Game Awards in the past?
No, not really.
Yeah, exactly. Like be honest.
I look forward to it. I look forward to it a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Like a thing on the calendar, right? Like that's all fine. But I think this year is a year which I might be maybe more looking forward to it than I have been in previous years. But does that put it up there with like, oh, fuck, guys, it's E3 or it's fucking Gamescom? No.
Yeah. The other reason I think for hesitation is that why are we excited for the Game Awards? And it's not for the things we're going to be talking about today, like the latest nominations and who's going to take home the most coveted awards. We're looking forward to the Hydrabot ads. We're looking forward to the trailers for games that aren't going to come out for 4 years. You know, that's why we stay up till 3 a.m.
Now, although
Jeff's shiny shoes.
And Jeff's shiny shoes. Having said that, though, I think part of the reason why I'm excited about it is because it's the gaming equivalent of like fucking Jake Paul versus fucking what's his face, one of the fucking boxers. Who knows anymore?
Anderson Silva?
No, was that Jake Paul? Or Logan Paul, I don't know, whatever.
You're thinking of the other day Floyd Mayweather fought KSI's brother.
Yeah, that was it. And that Deji, yeah. What a fucking weird one.
Yeah,
that is
Deji.
exactly what I think of.
Good question, Jonesy. Good question.
Because it's money and because Floyd Mayweather's like, yeah, I'll sneeze on the guy and he'll fucking crumple and like I don't have to break a sweat. And like it's an exhibition match and I'm gonna get paid millions upon millions upon millions. Like, yeah, fucking no-brainer. But what I was saying is it's the gaming equivalent of that because I am preparing myself to not only see games that I love duke it out in the metaphorical ring, but I also love to see, and this is probably the thing I'm looking most forward to, is the discourse around who wins and who doesn't win, because people get salty, capital gamers, capital G gamers, that's what it's all about. And I just hope, I pray that, Lord Elon Musk sees it fit that Twitter lasts until then so I can get everyone's unfiltered kind of opinion on it. Aren't you guys excited about that? Like Elden Ring versus God of War Ragnarok?
Yeah, no, I'd be interested to see, and the little back and forth on Twitter will be interesting. Whoever wins.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think you almost get more interesting discourse at this stage where, an entire year's worth of games has to be narrowed down to 6 titles, and I don't want to jump the gun on the discussion we're going to have, but there are some games in there that feel, like a bit of an odd one out, I think it's fair to say, and I don't know if there are that many crazy omissions, but I still like the conversation around, hang on a second, the fucking cat game? The cat game? What?
Be nice to the cat game.
That's the thing, I love the cat game. I love the cat game.
We're getting too far into it now. We're sort of jumping into a story that we're not ready to get into yet. So we will be talking about it very soon. But hey, another topic, another story we'll be touching on. Nintendo. They're a company that often like to say, hey, it's my way or the highway. But this time it seems people might be choosing the highway because Pokemon fans are not impressed with Scarlet and Violet at release, it seems. But Jonesy, before we get into all that...
It's almost as if Nintendo are just saying, keep on rolling, baby. I mean, take a look around.
Absolutely. But let's give him a minute.
No, I've got one.
He's got it. It's fermenting. It's bubbling.
It's almost like Miyamoto's wearing a big red baseball cap right now.
Jesus Christ, Jamie! Listen, I understand this. I understand that it's not easy, behind blue eyes. All right, so It's all right.
All right.
Oh, Chris, that was the dirtiest joke I've ever heard. See that? There you go. I got there in the end. That's the only. I don't know anything about Limp Bizkit.
No. We apologise for the Limp Bizkit references. They will now cease and stop. My fault entirely.
Yeah. Jones's going to start breaking stuff if we don't.
We are not a Limp Bizkit podcast. We are, in fact, a gaming podcast.
No, we're not. We're pivoting. We're pivoting.
Do you reckon a Limp Bizkit podcast would do well? Just pure Limp Bizkit.
It really wouldn't.
I think it
which
would.
is why
it's niche.
Yeah, that's what works in podcasting. Niche.
Super niche.
I guess so. Look, couldn't be any more niche than like 3 white dudes talking about games. That shit's like that's one in a million right there.
That is super niche.
We got the pattern.
We have. But we are indeed 3 white dudes talking about video games, and we are the SuperShow podcast. You can reach out to us at Twitter, if it's still around by the time you hear this, or YouTube at SuperShow Pod. We are also available on all podcasting platforms. I'm talking about Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, anywhere you might like to listen to us talk about stuff. Not just games, stuff in general. It kind of goes into stuff. We're also, though, on paisleyradio.com every Monday and Thursday at 10 p.m. if you want to check us out in pseudo-live radio fashion.
I like it.
That having been said, fellas, like I said, it's very good to talk to you. It's very good to see your little smiley faces. I'm looking forward to getting into the little catch-up that we sometimes do, because I know one of the 3 of us has completed... I was going to call it Game of the Year. We don't know if it is yet, but has completed God of War Ragnarok. But we'll get onto that very soon. Should we do comment of the week now? Should we go like old school?
Jonesy, before we do that, where have you been, buddy? Like, have you ever visited Poland at all?
I've been nearby. I've been to Slovakia, which isn't too far away.
Close.
I've never been to Poland. I've never
almost
been to Poland.
within like missile range. Yeah.
Well, thanks for setting that up, Chris, because the comment of the week comes in from Paige, who said, has anyone ever seen Jonesy and Vladimir Putin in the same room?
Oh.
No, of course not. Why would I be in the same room as Putin?
No. I have seen Jonesy riding a bear. Make of that what you will.
It's shirtless.
I've also seen a weird video online of like Jonesy stretched out really wide so he fits the whole frame, walking down a long corridor with some traditional Russian music in the background. Again, I just sort of like... adding a few other things into the mix. I don't know.
Also, good friends with Steven Seagal.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
I feel if you crossed me with Chris, we would look a bit like Vladimir Putin.
See, the thing,
and shaved it.
The thing that throws me off is that whilst you both could look Russian, you both also look so much like Edward Snowden that it's like it swings it back the other way. That like,
oh come on, don't Snowden me, don't Snowden me, bro.
Jonesy's
a daring up.
You both have more than a little bit of Snowden. Me, look at the 2 of you. Yeah, look at the 2 of you now. Look at the Discord you've got up in front of you.
Just because I've got fucking glasses on.
Bro, if Jonesy has Snowden, then you have Snowden. That's a fact.
How do I have Snowden?
Yeah, you got. So. You got.
I don't even know it.
You're pulling major Snowden vibes,
Austin
mate.
Powers Gold member mole on your face, then you look a lot like Snowden.
Oh, okay. I do see it a little bit actually. Now, to be fair, the boy's a lot slimmer than I am, so he's got a bit more definition than I've got. I reckon I could pull it back. I reckon I could get there. Give me a year or so.
If anyone of us 3 is going to do it, it's going to be you, Jonesy. I honestly, wholeheartily believe that.
The Wikipedia picture even has about the same level of stubble that I've got as well. So
wow, stubble level. This is what you've started, Jamie. Fucking hell. Snowden.
Do you know what? Now people are going to have to find I was almost going to call him an American hero. So find a controversial figure that I look like.
I think you could call him an internet hero.
I mean, we're going to talk about one later on today.
Oh, okay. Very fun. Yeah, okay, great. See, this is the thing. Jonesy misses 1 week and he gets to do all the Ragnarok jokes all over again. I get it.
Yeah, it's the perk.
Yeah, so if you want to listen to effectively all the contents of this podcast, but without Jonesy, just listen to last week's episode.
Yeah. The other fucked up thing compared to last week is having now finished the game, I know far more than you both do about whether or not those comparisons are apt.
It's also interesting because I suppose there are things that Chris and I may say about Ragnarok that you may have agreed with last week, but now you may disagree with
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I know more. I know.
I'm going to be very
careful, right? Because we still, exactly. I think we're still in the statute of spoiler territory.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
I don't want to go anywhere near it.
Spoiler territory is like 2 years because that's how long it takes me to sometimes finish a game. So I don't want to spoil anything for anyone at any point.
Oh,
yeah.
There you go.
But thank you for that comment. I am not, in fact, Vladimir Putin or any sort of love child of his, and I have not bombed Poland anytime recently.
I mean, that sounds like something that you almost have to say. So
sounds like something that Putin said. Turns out he was right.
Which was fun about that whole. No, that sounds bad. I don't mean fun like that. But what was?
Hey, do you know what's fun
about those deaths?
No, because what I was going to say was, so I listen to like shitloads of different like podcasts and YouTube stuff, and like from all different I like a lot of political stuff
from all different kinds of right wing media outlets.
I was thinking that same thing.
So I listen to like left wing stuff and right wing stuff and like in the middle stuff. I like to get like the full gamut.
To be fair, you do, yeah.
Listening to the story, like the same story, right? So my missiles hit Poland, but listening to it from each of those different places, the story that was coming out was so different. Because one was like Russia have bombed Poland. Then the other one, like right wing, which is I find weird. I don't really get this how it comes across. It was like, no, Ukraine did it as a false flag to try and get the West involved in the war. And then like from other people, like more centrist, it was kind of like it was an accidental detonation from like an air protection system. And you're like, this is one story. Where are these people getting all their different information from? Because Anyway, let's get off the politics because that's not what we're about. I know. See,
again, something that Putin would say. Let's stop talking about it. You don't need to worry about it. It's fine. Just sweep it under the rug. Don't worry about it. No. Have some vodka, some caviar.
Stop talking about Putin.
You're going to ruin Jonesy's segue.
Exactly. Because I know a group of people, thank you, Jamie, who don't care about politics. They care about gaming. And I'm, of course, talking about our patrons who have gone over to patreon.com and who follow us for as little as $2 a month. We are, of course, patreon.com/SuperShow. I would like to read out some of the names of those amazing people right now because they literally keep the lights on. They keep us coming back. They keep this little cart horse debacle that we've got going on trundling along. Something like that.
Wow.
There are some names on the screen right now, but I'm going to read some out for you. They are Aaron Cameron, Athletic Gravy, Bill Caesar, Brimstone, Cole K, Crow's Perch, Ice Knock Rock Salt, Jesper Kando Nielsen, Leo Merger, Mindful Pig, Mr. Anthropic, Pastors Guild, and the big dogs, the members of the board. They are Brett Z, aka Shell Shock, Doppler, Geometric Potter, Hacksaw Book Read, Manuel Guerrero, and Peaswad. So thank you so much to all of you. Also, a big shout out, a big thank you to everyone who watches, who likes, who comments, who listens to us on podcast platforms. Just interacting with us in any way, shape, or form is very, very valuable to us and is amazing. So thank you so much. Yeah, I'm gonna point out the fact I do this every time. Jesper Camdown Nielsen. I can't say his name when I read it out in that list. Jesper. And also, I also say Brett Z instead of Brett Z. I'm not American. Don't know why I do it.
I say Brett Z. Didn't I? I say Brett Z.
I think maybe we all do.
Yeah, I think we all do. Because I'm going through it now. It's like, I think I've commented on this before, but one nice thing about our patrons is that the list is more or less so consistent that you do fall into a bit of a patter or a way of saying the names and like,
Well, hold on. Don't Americans say Z? They don't say Z. Because I remember watching. Because I remember watching a program with Matthew Perry showing off his car, which was a BMW Z8. And he called it a Z8, and I thought this guy's a fucking moron.
Right.
So, I thought this the other day because Z doesn't fit. All the other letters in the alphabet kind of flow and fit, and Z does fit better. But we obviously say Z, which like the end of the ABC song, it's like and Z. So it doesn't. No,
but if you carry on the ABC song, it's like won't you sing the song with me? And it rhymes with Z.
Z. Exactly.
But if you don't take it on, then Z. Is very kind of like, that's the fucking end of it, bitches.
Oh, see, I learned the version of it where now I know my ABC and I'll know it till I'm dead. So it did rhyme with it. And it was, it's a fact. I'm still alive and I still know it. So
decent, nice. Yeah, not bad. Before we catch on, guys, Peaswad had a request because like one of these classic kind of tropes where someone says something, you laugh at it, but you actually don't know what you're laughing at. Right? You know that kind of sentiment. So Peaswad did reach out to me and said like, hey, can you explain what gamer with a capital G actually means.
That's a good
one. To me, gamer
yeah,
with a capital G.
And this is going to be the interesting thing, because I think we might have all slightly skewed kind of like opinions on what it does actually mean, even though it's a thing that we fucking coined and carry on talking about all the time.
To be fair, like I don't think I know. I think I've always just assumed, and it kind of works for me. So I could be completely wrong, but whenever you say game with a capital G, you're talking about not people who play video games. You're talking about a certain subset of gamers who not only play games, but they consider themselves gamers. They identify as gamers. They get like up in arms about anything video game. They don't have to fit the stereotype of like sitting in the bedroom in the one chair, like gaming and not doing anything else and eating Cheetos and getting covered in like crumbs. It doesn't have to be that, but I suppose that's the archetype, right? You imagine that. So that for me is that's the capital G.
Yeah, in my head, it was the same thing where being a gamer with a capital G didn't mean you necessarily like adopted one particular ideology or you were part of one particular community. It was more the way you kind of interacted and invested yourself in games in general. And like Jonesy said, like to what extent you are a part of the conversation around games and you are a part of that, those voices on Twitter and on Reddit who think they represent the masses and think they're part of a vocal majority and oftentimes don't realize they're part of the 0.1% of consumers actually talking about the product they're paid for.
Yeah.
You know?
See, I think we're all fairly aligned. With me, it was very much a case of like a gamer with a capital G is just your like bog standard social media entitled gamer where each game is made for them and them alone and fuck everyone else. And hey, how can you put a female protagonist in my game? Or hey, how can you talk about like trans rights in my game? Like, how dare you? This is my game. If I want to play as a a bare-chested lady, I will do that. Or like that's just entitled gamers.
I know I agree with you, but then I think the capital G gamer could also be the exact opposite of that. As long as they have a super self-involved opinion and think that they are representative, I think they could. It doesn't matter the opinion; it's just the fact that they think they are that thing. They're like, I am the.
Well, I think also while maintaining a lack of self-awareness with regards to how small they actually are and how relevant their opinion actually is in the wider like model.
Yeah,
it's funny because it's one thing that Jamie always flags, and I genuinely forget. Like every time we have the conversation, and Jamie, whenever we talk about like gaming and we talk about opinions and how we think this thing is going to affect the industry and sales and stuff like that, and I think Jamie often points out like, hey, we're part of a niche group of people that are probably talking about this, and it probably won't move the needle at all when it comes to like the wider gaming community and most gamers in general. And Jamie's nearly always right. Because then when it comes to like sales, it's like, guess what? Everyone bought the game, or guess what? It did shit because the little microcosms of gaming that we talk about don't actually affect the majority of people.
Like depending on which platforms you look at and sort of, where you draw numbers from. But hey, if we listen to someone like Phil Spencer, with the round of interviews that he's been doing in the last couple of weeks, there are like 3 billion gamers on the planet right now. Now, of course, when you use the word gamers in that sense, you're including people who take their phone out of their pocket on the commute and play 10 minutes of Candy Crush as a gamer, but still, like, the metric holds, the number holds up. And at the same time, you need like 2,000 to 3,000 people to agree with you to get onto the very top of the foremost subreddit for earnest video game discussions. So it's like the numbers don't add up, basically. You can get people on the internet to agree with you. As every failed petition has ever shown us, you can get people on the internet to agree with you very easily. You can get people to click on an upvote button very easily. But the people who, ironically, the people who vote with their wallets vastly outnumber the people who vote with their voices when it comes to certain more hardcore online communities, which is backwards, but yeah.
It's funny because I think it's been demonstrated in other entertainment genres as well. Because I always remember one that always jumps out to me, Eminem, who was absolutely massive at the time, didn't want, or was saying like you shouldn't vote for George Bush because he's like a George Bush Jr., right, in America. Like,
he had a massive campaign.
And Eminem did a massive thing where he even recently released that song. Like, was it White America? I think was about it. And he had a whole thing that was like, "Don't vote for George Bush," and it was like, "Oh, George Bush is going to lose badly because Eminem's come out and all this." And when it came to it, no one gave a shit. He won, and you're like, that for me is a good example of the same in gaming when it feels loud because you're in it. And then as soon as you step out of the microcosm, so everyone else goes, "What were you yelling about in that little room?" And you're like, "Oh, I was in a little room."
Does that make Eminem a capital R rapper?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Ooh, how about this? Something that I know we're kind of like stretched for time here. I found out 2 days ago that rap is actually an acronym.
Is it?
Something about rhythm or rhyming and
it's like I think it's rhythm and poetry, rap.
Rhythm and poetry.
Oh,
that sounds so cringe,
mad, isn't it? Like I was reading like some article from some fucking like music, like well-known music, like probably like I don't know, fucking Kerrang, not Kerrang, but you know what I mean, Rolling Stone or something. And yeah, it had that, and I was like, I never actually fucking thought about that, like where rap came from. It's like fucking hell.
I had a moment the other day where I tweeted out something about I was thinking about rap, but I was like, is it rap or is it hip hop? And then I thought when you type it out, it's like hip hop. It's really super weird to read it. I was like, that sounds like someone going hip hop. And I thought I can't tweet that because it does
really kind of sound like the most
head.
British thing ever, isn't it? Oh, a little bit of hip hop.
It sounds like a dad who's never heard like a rap album going, "Oh, do you like hip hop? Hippity hop." Okay. It's like, I had to change it to rap because I was like, it sounds weird.
It's weird.
Anyway, carry on.
Yeah. Doesn't work in our accent. Anyway, right, we're going to do a bit of our catch up now. I was going to talk about God of War because obviously I've been playing Ragnarok and I missed out last week. But we're going to talk about Ragnarok for the nominations coming up on the Game Awards. So I think I will leave it for a minute and let Jamie discuss what he's been playing first. And then I will talk about God of War Ragnarok. And then we can seamlessly roll into talking about the Game Awards. How about that?
Nice idea. All I've got to contribute to that is that after a slightly delayed release following Modern Warfare 2's launch a couple of weeks ago, Warzone 2, or Warzone 2.0, is now out in earnest for everyone, free to play, and it comes with the core Warzone 2 sort of Battle Royale mode in the new map, and also the beta version of the new DMZ mode, which is Call of Duty's an attempt to kind of combine elements of the plunder game mode that existed before with, popular breakout FPS shooters like FPS games, like Escape from Tarkov, with the kind of what's the word? Basically, get in, loot, get out, extraction-based gameplay loop, if you will. But yeah, I've been playing this on the PS5, which has been nice because obviously one of the weird things about Warzone was it was attached to Modern Warfare 2019, and it was kind of stuck on that last gen, and the hardware and that engine was really showing its age by the time that Warzone came to an end and wound down before this launched. And one thing that's like really encouraging to say immediately is that from a technical perspective, it is much better. The map feels bigger and sharper, and the lines of sight are far better. Like it feels like the rendering distance and the viewing distance and the LODs and everything feel dramatically improved in a way that lends itself to increased visibility and like far just more cohesive and less scrambled sort of gunfights, which has been encouraging in the early stages. I've only played about 5 or 6 matches. I like the new map. It's called Al Mazrah, so it's a desert-like setting, but it still has a city, kind of in a similar way to Verdansk did. It's, some other interesting POIs, like there's an airport, which is at least partially based on Terminal, which was a popular map from the original Modern Warfare 2. It seems solid. The fundamentals are all very similar to Warzone. It definitely wants to be more of a shooter than sort of like, say, like PUBG, where you're collecting individual attachments and so on and so forth. But they have also complicated a little bit with the addition of a backpack, which lets you hold sort of 5 or 6 additional items of your choice. So you could fill all 5 slots of your backpack with another 3 sets of plates. So you could be running around with 18 armor plates. It's kind of interesting how flexible that system is. Or you can hold 5 times the maximum amount of ammo for your assault rifle. And they have also really heavily de-emphasized loadouts, which were in the original Warzone a way for you to get your guns, but also a set of perks. You can get your guns quite easily now, but loadouts are much harder to get, which means almost no one for most of the game has perks, which means you don't have to worry about things like Ghost and Overkill and Double Time.
Thank God. Thank fuck for that.
Yes. So it ends up being far more focused on, like traditional battle royales were when the genre kind of first blew up. It feels like it's more based around looting and sort of like winning your fights, and there are some other interesting twists. Like there are these things called strongholds, which are parts of the map that are filled with high level AI, and if you go in there, you can get a really high quality loot or a loadout. So it's kind of some risk reward elements drawn into the battle royale mode as well. It seems solid. I don't know if it's going to get another 300 million people through the door like the last one did. I think I'd be curious to see what the numbers are like, because I haven't spoken to that many lapsed Warzone players who have given a shit yet. But like, I doubt, like, I'm guessing neither of you two have played it.
No,
I have.
Oh, yeah, well, there we go. I'm wrong.
I'm keen, but I haven't even
I played one game.
Yeah, I'm keen, but like, geez, I'm just still trying to. I'm just like head down, focusing on God of War, just to kind of get it done as soon as possible, so that we could just do, even just talk about it amongst ourselves up to that point. Because I know I'm the one like dragging us all down, and we can only talk about as a group as far as I am. So I know I'm letting the team down. So I'm just focusing on that. But once that's done, then yeah, I'd definitely be keen to kind of jump back in.
Nice. I wanted to give it a little taste, just because I know like a group of people that will be playing it, or I think already have started playing it. So I was like, I'll download it. I'll play, I'll play a couple of matches, and then I'll hop on next time they do. But I think so. I only played one. But what a funny thing is, Jamie, because you were saying then about the draw distances and how far you can see and stuff. Because I did have a weird thing in that. I think I downloaded it on the day two. I found a sniper rifle, and when I climbed up to the top of a tower and zoomed in, and I could literally see little people frozen in shape, not moving, just gliding along the screen. And it wasn't until they got a certain distance from me that they actually then started to animate. And I was like, oh no, this is shit. And then,
that's a bummer.
And then someone else did this, and I was like, maybe it was just a weird glitch. And then another person did the same thing. And I was like, okay, if I shoot at them, can I even hit them if they're just like a frozen little weird animation? But I don't know. That maybe that's just like TV issues.
It's probably just a rendering issue, right? Like,
yeah,
you'd hope so.
Servers have also been abysmal.
I'd imagine it's probably like an LOD just hasn't loaded, right? And just it's just got
I'm sure it's just early doors stuff.
The main reason I kind of put a bit of emphasis on that is because that was the reason I stopped playing Warzone when Caldera got brought in. I just thought the visibility in Caldera was atrocious. Like the way they handled foliage, the way they handled like the color palette, where everything felt like this weird mush of greens and browns. I just thought, like, the amount of times I died when that map got introduced, and I was like, I just don't know who was shooting me and where from, and I couldn't.
Yeah.
I know I'm looking in their direction, but I can't see them.
It's so funny. That's how I felt in fucking Verdansk.
Well, I think Al Mazrah largely being a desert, and the fact that I think just generally like the quality and the sharpness of the presentation has improved. I mean, you were playing on PC, so maybe it will be consistent, but certainly, like, Warzone was a PS4 executable up till the day it died, right? So, like, we are making steps forward, and I think that is paying dividends in some elements of the gameplay. I also just think that proximity chat is a really fun addition that I'm not going to engage with that much, but the clips that we're going to get out of it are going to be gold. So
yeah, exactly.
Bring it on.
I just suddenly had a little flash of like, I think we should all hop in together and play some.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that.
I was texting
Jamie like, move up, tapped. What are you doing? Why are you over there? No, don't do that. Oh, you idiots!
It's actually
both dead.
It's actually my favorite game. It's not necessarily Battle Royale. It's Battle Royale with Jamie, because just getting Jamie hot under the collar is a lot more enjoyable than like looting.
Yeah, but you say that. It's
getting into
like
dogfights or anything.
To be fair,
look, I don't do it on purpose, well, partly on purpose, but I do it on purpose to hide the fact that I'm shit at it. It's not like I'm good at it and then I just suck to piss Jamie off.
I'll have you both know that I am a calm and reasonable person.
Yeah.
When the time calls for calm. Okay, that's the key.
I think I'm accurate in saying that was there once? I think I did not win a single game of Warzone the entire time it existed. and now I'm never going to play it again.
No way.
I never won one game. I think I won.
No, I know that that's true because when Jonesy and I were sharing our like Warzone wrap-up videos that they made, my final screen said wins, and Jonesy's final screen said number of top 10s in that same slot.
Right? Yeah. No, I thought
it was just like a random stat that they pulled out.
No, I'm pretty sure that I know because I had a thing that like I played with people that I played with them, and they were okay. But I wasn't that great, but I was better than them by a decent stretch. And they'd won like 5 times. And I was like, how have I never won? And I went back and started playing it again. And was like, okay, I'm gonna get a win, and then I'm never gonna play it again. And I never got a win. I thought there was one occasion when I died, and then the team I was on, it was a team of randoms, and then they might have won one. But then I think that might have actually been in a different game type, like Rebirth Island or something like that. Necessarily proper Warzone proper.
Question, because I haven't watched any like Warzone 2 stuff. How are they handling like Gulag and all that stuff? Or do they even have it?
Gulag is still in the game, but it is 2v2 now. So 2v2? you are basically paired up with, I think ostensibly a random person, but if it can pair you up with a teammate, it does. I've been in there with a teammate. Okay. Another weird thing, I don't know if it's just like a seasonal thing or like where the current game is, it seems to always start you with pistols, and you can pick up some other stuff in the middle of this arena. And the way it works is that the team that wins, both people get out. So even if you die immediately, if your teammate clutches it, goes 1v2 and wins, you both get out.
I was going to ask if that was why they'd done it. So because I wonder what it would do if it does pair you with randoms, is it tries to weight it. So that if you're, because one of the shit things is if you're crap and you get in the gulag with a good person, it's every time you're going to lose. Like that's boring as fuck. So the idea of waiting is quite good.
I had a moment the other day where so there's a little animation that plays at the beginning where you kind of your character looks at your teammate and you give each other a little thumbs up and get ready to go. And when he was doing it, I noticed that my guy is wearing these CDL like COD Pro League skins that you have to spend like £8.50 on. And so I was in a party chat and I was like, oh my God, my guy has bought the stupid like COD Pro skins. And I died immediately and he clutched it 1v2 and we both got back in. And I was like, nice. I'm sorry for taking the piss out of you.
Yeah,
maybe. I doubt. I'd like to think I was in a COD Pros lobby, but maybe it was, I don't know.
But do you know what? I might play Warzone 2 until I get a win and then never play again. And if I'm still playing it in years, then I'll be really.
You got me thinking if I ever won on Warzone. I think I might have won once, but I do know that I was a lot more successful. Yeah, exactly. But I do. Even better. There we go. But even more impressive than that is I remember I was bad at Warzone, but I was really good at the Gulag for some reason. Don't ask me why. Like my percentage on Gulag was pretty high. But there we go.
Nice. Decent. I'll also just say anecdotally that I was speaking to our friend Steph Murphy about Warzone, and he said that he has been having a blast with the DMZ mode, so that could be something else that we look into when we are all installed and up to date and ready to go.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
Just got a wall behind me and I'm there. Got a wall behind me and I'm there.
Yeah.
Not behind you yet, Chris, because we're now going to talk about it, because God of War Ragnarok is leading the Game Award 2022 nominations because it has been nominated for 10 prizes, which puts it ahead of Elden Ring, which I suppose is pretty much its number one competitor. Yep. Also up there are Horizon Forbidden West. Just that one. I can't remember any of the others that are on for Game of the Year.
I mean, it's literally in the document in front of you,
wasn't it? You said
I've put the Game of the Year nominees.
Literally in the document in front of you.
Jamie's listed it below. The next. So, other nominees for Game of the Year are A Plague Tale, Requiem, Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Stray, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which is an interesting little. It is a bit of an interesting list because it's been a bit of a weak year, to be fair. But before we move on, before we get into Game Awards proper, before we talk about some of those other games, let's dip into some God of War, if you will indulge.
I mean, you're the person who missed a week of Ragnarok action, my friend. I feel the people need to know.
So yeah, Jamie, you finished it. You're at about, how many hours did you say? 34 hours, did you say?
Do you know what? That's interesting you ask. I was at 34 hours when, how am I going to phrase this?
When you rolled credits. No?
That's...
Oh, okay.
Let's say...
Let's just stick at 34. Let's say...
It's fun to buy this. What? But 34 to finish the story. Main story.
34 and a half to finish the main story. 35 to feel satisfied.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what I'll say.
Chris, I think you're on about a third of that, right? You're like 12 hours or so.
Mate, I literally messaged you last night. It's 15 hours. Thank you very much.
Sorry, 15.
Yeah.
I'm on 20.
Sorry. So going by Jamie's estimate, I'm almost halfway.
Yes. And so I'm on about 21, 22 hours. So we're okay. We're at a decent spread. I listened back to obviously the show last week, and I listened to what you guys were saying, and I thought it was very interesting. I'm really enjoying God of War, as you can imagine. I've played 21 hours of it, 22 hours.
It's a good game.
It's a very good game. There are areas of it though, because I don't just want to go and like sing its praises and say how amazing it is and how fantastic it is, and that it should be given the game of the year already at this point, because there are issues with it. And I wanted to float a few of them, especially with Jamie, because I already mentioned a few to Chris. So he in the week, so I know he's probably already thought about them a bit. So one of my issues with God of War Ragnarok is it's not necessarily. I don't think you can necessarily consider it like a standalone game.
Okay,
it is I was quite surprised. In one of the reviews that I heard before I played it. I think it was Skill Up, and he sort of said that you can't, if you consider like God of War 2018 like a standalone game, it's not like a deal. Like people called it DLC or something before it came out, which is bullshit. Like it's so big and encompassing that I think that's unfair. But you need to, I think, talk about these two games as a saga. I think that's the word he used, which I think is absolutely right. It's not even a sequel, because a sequel is like a story in its own right that follows in from a film or a movie or a book. This is the finishing chapter of a 2-chapter thing.
Yeah.
Some of the combat, if you've played God of War 2018, you haven't played Ragnarok yet. I think if someone said to me, should I play it? I'm like, yes, you absolutely should. If you enjoyed God of War, you will love this. The combat is meaty. You've got all of the good stuff you had from the first game. You've got skill trees, and you've got the Leviathan axe, and you've got the Chaos Blades, and the characterization stuff is wicked. And everything you could want to be improved upon is improved upon. There's more characters. There's more people to fill out a little. I don't want to say stuff to give anything away. There's more people. There's more people to talk to, and there's more things going on. And the world looks amazing. But yeah, the saga aspect of it did make me think it was a little bit odd. If someone said to me, I haven't played God of War 2018, should I play this? I genuinely was like, I don't know what I would say.
Well, someone asked me this week, and I said, don't play Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Not play Ragnarok. Absolutely.
Play 2018.
For God's sake, play God of War 2018, which is still one of, if not the best game of that entire generation, and then play an absolutely phenomenal follow-up. Sequel semantics. I think
follow-up's a nice way to put it, because that's kind of what it is, right?
It's the complete. I don't want to criticize it though. Like in a world where there are so many games that, like, you look at some other like Sony, big sequels recently, whether it's The Last of Us Part 2 or even you mentioned Horizon Forbidden West, which is one of the Game Awards nominees. Like so many sequels that talk about reopening the book and the idea of like nice, neatly packaged endings that kind of have to be disrupted a little bit, and new elements have to be like every sequel has to find their Abbey, which is like, this is our Deus Ex Machina that gives us an excuse for a plot. I actually want to praise a game for once that is like, no, we've got a story to tell. We think we can do it in 2 games, and we're going to do it in 2 games.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Right. Yeah. No. I like that. I like the fact that I like that it's sort of carried on from that. One of the things I was a bit like not sure on was the fact that it's been 4 years since the first game came out. And then some of the ways that this game almost just is a foregone conclusion that you've just finished 2018 and you remember it really well. Like there's even the little lines about like, oh, you must remember how to do this. And oh, you remember this sort of puzzle. And oh yeah, do you remember how these things work? And I get why they did that, but there was a little bit too much of that for me. Like it would, even down to like, I get they didn't want to reintroduce mechanics and they didn't want to have to go through stuff again. And you could just imagine the capital G gamers who would have come out and gone, oh, can't believe they maybe do a tutorial again about how to like burn those bushes with the Chaos Blades. But it is funny when you get that on quite a few times and it's
oh man,
it's almost like going, oh, you played the tutorial game. You're like, okay. So I'm not getting any of that.
But almost to make up for that is they just have made the characters a little bit incessant in terms of that. It's like, oh, do this. And you're like, oh, okay, thanks.
They don't give you 2 minutes to do something.
Yeah. Stuff like that kind of like brush me up the wrong way. I still think that this is a phenomenal game. It's a phenomenal story. It's great gameplay. I don't think it's as good as God of War 2018 by a fair way, to be honest.
It's weird though, right? It is weird though, because I think if you say it's not as good as that, I was really racking my brains about this in the week. I was like, I don't even think I could compare it, because if you said to me, what do you think of God of War? I have to think of the two games as one whole, because it is a saga.
I've got a little bit of that as well, you know.
Seeing it as like one thing. I think I would feel that way if there wasn't so much difference. So maybe if it wasn't like on a next gen. Do you know what I mean? Like if God of War 2018 came out on PS4 when PS4 first launched, and then at the end of PS4's life cycle it came out, I would probably be like, yeah. But I just think that like the goalposts for me haven't moved that much, and by not moving, the amount of time has actually in effect moved them back somewhat in a weird kind of way.
I know. I get what I agree with you. Like, I get what you mean. This game, if it was a PlayStation 4 game that's also on PlayStation 5,
which it is,
then I'm saying then like that's if it's that, then I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But when you play it on a PlayStation 5, you're kind of like, you almost wish it wasn't. I don't want to say you wish it wasn't held back, but you kind of, do you know what I mean? I want it to be the Part 2 saga thing, but I want it to also be something different, because I want it to have moved the goalposts. But because of what it is, because it's a PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 game, it is cross generation. So I'm like, I can't then criticize it for not having changed much. Does that make sense?
I haven't understood anything that either of you two have just said, if I'm being totally honest. So, you guys went back to back on confusion.
I'm with Chris in that 4 years after the first game, I wanted it to have pushed the where it's at along, because 2018 was such a progression from the original trilogy of God of War.
Yeah,
I kind of wanted another progression, but because this is a cross-platform saga continuation, you're like, well, it can't move the needle that much. It has to follow on from the 2018 game pretty closely, because it's like a part 2. But because it's been 4 years, because it's available on the next generation, I feel a little bit like what could have been. Does that make sense?
But at the same time, to play devil's advocate for you two against my argument, is at the same time, when I wrapped up God of War 2018, if you'd asked me what I wanted from the follow-up, I'd say this. I'd be like, I just want more of the same. I want a great story. I want a conclusion to that story. And like a few improvements here and there. Why not? And that's exactly what they've delivered. So like, fair play.
If that came out 2019,
or even 2020,
or 2020, I would have said 100%. It's only because it's been 4 years that it makes.
So you're saying it's been too long for it to be so similar.
In a way,
I think the longer the gap is, the less forgiving I think you could feel about how similar it is.
But I think that feeling for me is compounded by the fact that we are now in another generation. I think if it was in a similar generation, I could probably say like, 4 years, that's fine, and that's very much at least in terms of the gameplay. Obviously, like narrative wise, I think it has pushed the goalposts a little bit. I wouldn't say that they're going like extreme, but I do think that they have done a really good job of what I would like to see the goalpost move in terms of a narrative decision. That's on point. But in terms of gameplay and level design, etc., I feel that like it's very similar. And I think maybe that's where Jonesy says like that's where it kind of feels held back by the constraints of like, oh no, it's on PS4 as well. Right?
Which is always, I suppose, is always an issue. Like for right now, I'll say So that the squeezing through doors, squeezing through gaps, climbing under things. After 22 hours, I'm like, Jesus Christ, how many things have I squozen through? To get from like, and it's quite funny because the game that I was playing before this was Gotham Knights, and that was the review that I watched before, and it was a Skill Up review, and Skill Up criticized Gotham Knights for like squeezing through a gap to get into something,
and loading the level, yeah,
and he was like, "This is PlayStation 5. Why are we still squeezing through gaps?" And I think I could probably count maybe 2 or 3 times that I did that in the 15 hours that I played it. I then played God of War and watched his review of that. And I've now done 10,000 squeezes. And in his review, he was like, do you know what's funny? I was actually chatting to someone the other day and they were telling me the reason you squeeze isn't because of loading. It's because they're trying to create a sense of, like a small space and you're in a confined area. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting how you've completely 180'd on your opinion of why this happens.
It was one of those things where like the discourse got started up about like, oh, here developers go again, forcing us through tight gaps so they can load in the level. And then a bunch of developers, including some of the directors of The Last of Us, came out with like, that's not why we do it. Like, it can be why we do it, but like in The Last of Us, like most of them were to keep you in certain areas because you can't interact with those gaps or whatever they are again once you're in combat. So if we can get you in a certain area, then we know you can only have combat within this confined space, and we know we can control the parameter. And yeah, and so a lot of people had to kind of backtrack on the thing of like, oh, that's them loading in the level. Cheeky developers. And
that does not feel like that's what it is in God of War. It feels like
I think there's certain instances where it feels like that, and other instances where maybe it doesn't.
A bit of a showdown. Alex Jones, video game player, versus the director of The Last of Us.
No, Last of Us, I didn't feel like that at all. Last of Us, I agree, felt like, but there's areas in God of War where you squeeze through a gap and then there's like 3 like random mob enemies and a couple of nightmares. Like it's not like you're squeezing me into a tense battle environment. It's like you've thrown at me. There
are loads of times. Do you know what? I'm not going to get caught up in it. Do you know what my thing to say is? As someone who spent 35 hours in God of War, every time I see a tweet or a comment where someone talks about squeezing through a gap or the verbosity of side characters during side quests, I'm like, did we really just play the same video game? We really just see everything we saw over the last 30 plus hours?
And that's what you remember.
And you squeezed through too many gaps?
Oh, there were. I'd agree. There were too many gaps. Like it did get to a point where it's like I
just had a Michelin star. I just had a Michelin star meal, but the waiter refilled my water too many times.
No, because refilling your water would be a positive. It would more be like the waiter. It more be like the waiter wipes your mouth for you. And the first time he does it at Michelin star restaurant, you're like, oh, fancy. He's wiped my mouth for me, so I'm having a more pleasant experience. And then he does it after, instead of like in between each course, he does it after every third bite. You're like, okay, mate, I don't need the wiping. Just leave the wiping.
But if someone started telling me that story, I'd still stop and go, but hang on a second. I thought you were meant to be telling me about the food.
Yeah.
But I think that's fair. Wouldn't that be part of your experience of a Michelin star restaurant?
When it came to in a Michelin star restaurant, if a waiter was insistent on wiping my mouth for me, yes, that would be part of the experience. Was squeezing through gaps part of my 35 hours with God of War Ragnarok? Is that going to be a lasting memory for me? Is that going to factor into the way I commit this game to my memory bank for years to come and recall it in the future?
Oh,
fuck no. So why am I talking about it now? Because we're nitpicking.
There's a lot less that I can nitpick on. There's a lot less I can nitpick on. I can be very specific on things that rub me the wrong way on Ragnarok, but I can't verbalize them because that's going. Right. I don't want to get into that nitty gritty at this stage of the game's release because I don't think that's necessarily fair. But you guys know, I'd messaged on the WhatsApp chat that there is a segment that is really slow and tedious and linear in a point in the game where I was not expecting it. And I just felt that it rubbed me up entirely the wrong way.
Yeah.
And my opinion on that hasn't changed since going past all of that.
And you know that I loved that entire segment.
Yeah, sure. But then again, that's what it is, right?
That's
the difference of people, but that's also the difference of, it's in a way, it's what we mentioned with Last of Us Part 2. It's the hallmark of a good game where you can get such visceral reactions from different ways, whether it be a negative or positive. It's kind of a strange thing to think of that way, but that is the hallmark of a good game, because they are honing their skills, they're trying something. It resonates with some people, it doesn't resonate with other people, but it's still a segment of a bigger whole, and that's enjoyable. Yeah. And I felt like it's the same with Last of Us Part 2. Like, a phenomenal game, but it did rub people the wrong way because they were trying shit and they had the kind of like balls and capacity to do it.
No, absolutely. And someone left a comment on our Discord, which I thought was fun and interesting. It doesn't apply at all to God of War, to be fair. I'll read it to you briefly. So this is Amnestus said that they'd seen a meme where basically people was saying that God of War is too cinematic and there is too much cutscenes and like story and stuff. He wasn't saying that he agreed with it, but then he said, does the game suffer from final fantitis or Hideo Kojimaism of being more video than gameplay? And if so, how close is the threshold, or how close does it come to the threshold of it not being a game judged by Jonesy?
Because obviously 50%.
Where I say if it's 50%, I would say now, like from what I've played, I would say there is nowhere near enough story in God of War. Like I could take lashings more cutscene.
Yeah, I would have happily eaten double what I was given.
I'd say it's nicely balanced between story, gameplay, exploration, puzzles. You know, like I think, you know, you talk about like the 3-course meal. I think your starch, your protein, you know, your veg, it's all equally diced up for you. All right.
There is the one thing I felt. And again, I'm, as Jamie said, I'm nitpicking here because it's like, I know it'd be boring to just go, it's amazing. I did find there are some sections of it where I'm a little bit like, my kids have a book, right, about, what is it, the Little Red Riding Hood. And there's a line in the book that we joked about for ages. And it's like suddenly a wolf jumped out. And it's this, you know, because the wolf jumps out and my kids say it all the time and we still laugh about it. There is a bit of that about this game in that you're just doing your doing. And it's like they need to inject some combat because they're like, well, we've had a puzzle. We've had a bit where you walk and talk to a character. So now we need combat. And there's a couple of bits where you're like, did you really need to chuck in some of those random enemies that don't even seem to fit this environment? But they suddenly jump out. And you're like, okay.
So this is a good example of where I feel it might have happened in God of War 2018, but you felt it less. And this is kind of what I've been coming up against God of War Ragnarok.
I thought it was less. That's why I did think it was less.
In God of War Ragnarok, I feel like everything was there in God of War 2018, but I felt like it was a whole lot more coherent in the moment-to-moment kind of getting you to places. Whereas in God of War Ragnarok, and for whatever reason, it just feels very kind of like segmented in terms of like, I've done this segment, and now I've done this segment, and I've done that segment. Whereas in God of War 18, unless I'm misremembering, it did feel to kind of like flow in between those segments a lot less kind of like obviously. Jamie's giving me the looks, the Jamie look.
No, because it's just interesting you use the word segments because I very much remember God of War in the 2018 in segments. And one of my friends is playing through God of War 2018 for the first time right now. Because they were jealous of everyone playing Ragnarok. And when I was reminding myself of where they were and what they've got to come, I broke it down into segments the exact same way I was doing with my own Ragnarok playthrough that was happening simultaneously. I get what you mean about potentially it flowing from one to another a little bit more. I think that's also by virtue of like God of War Ragnarok goes to a lot of both physically and figuratively goes to a lot more places, and there's a lot more that needs to happen. And I think also one of the things I talked about last week lends itself to kind of breaking down into segments, which is God of War Ragnarok is a game that is a lot to do with fate, and it's a lot to do with prophecy, and it's a lot to do with assuming you know what's going to come, but uncertainty around how to get there. And that does lead to moments in the story where characters are literally don't know what to do next. They don't know whether to do nothing or to do something. And when characters don't know what to do, that often gets to a place where at the conclusion of a chapter, let's call it, the protagonist will just say, let's go back home and kind of like figure out what's next. Or maybe something will happen to us on the way back. And I can see that being why things break up more into these chunks or segments, because there are weirdly defined starts and ends to the sections that the game is sort of presented in.
There was a few weird numbers of time where you're told literally, "Let's go home." You're like, "Oh,
Yes.
okay, we're off home again." Where they literally say it. But
they play on that in an interesting way at one point though, which I do like.
Yes, no, I think I know what you mean. Agreed.
We've all seen that.
Yeah.
On the whole though, I have to say like best thing I've played this year by a milestone, by a bloody mile. It is fantastic.
Yeah, of course, because you haven't played Elden Ring.
No, because you know what? Even like I've played the type before, and they don't do something for me in the way that God of War does. In that, any little nitpick I've done just now, any little gripe about things like this is a little bit repetitive, and you've done that before, and da 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 da. Getting back into that world, getting back to those characters, everything being cranked up another notch. Like I was just saying, someone saying about is this game too cinematic? If anything, I had a little bit of the Last of Us Part 2 in that I was like, I kind of don't want to be doing combat right now, doing puzzles right now, because I want to develop the story. Yeah, and it was almost like they were teasing me by making me fight a character that I couldn't be asked to fight because I wanted to find out the next story beat, and I was so like into everything that's going on.
Oh, that was that segment that I alluded to earlier, where it's like it was a really slow kind of thing. It's like, okay, this is where they're setting up a lot of kind of like exposition. And it's like, okay, I see what they're doing. They're slowing things down. They're getting a lot of exposition out, stuff that you need to kind of pay attention to and focus on. I'm like, yeah, let's go for it. And then it's like, I'm just going from section to section. I don't want to go too much detail. And it's almost like filler dialogue until I get to a segment where it's like, okay, well, this is the exposition segment. And then like, oh, okay, now I'm getting all the info.
I don't know if this is a good time to interrupt, but I feel like you're echoing some of the things I said last week, Chris. And
I've got to go back and listen to the pod then.
And I have changed my mind.
Okay,
like I was wrong about stuff. Okay. I'll put it this way: I was even wrong about some of my perceived shortcomings about the one take and what I thought it would leave them stranded with. Like they navigated around that.
Yeah. I think I've experienced something where they start to navigate around that, right?
But it's funny because I think even with when they inject combat between like narrative elements, and you want to you have a narrative bit and then you have combat and you want to get to the next narrative bit. I think it's good in the sense of what I think they've almost done is it adds to the ferocity of like you battling your way through because you're like, I want to know what happens next, and it means that you play for longer and it feels like there's more drive. So even sometimes when I'm like, I don't want to do this battle now, it adds to the experience because it adds to your sense of like drive. It adds to your sense of there's a thing in the story that I need to know about, that I need to get to, and you're in my way, and I'm going to chop your fucking head off with this axe. Like it adds to it. I think it aids it in that sense, which is an interesting thing that they've played with. I even said to Jamie yesterday, there was a part that I just did where they tease like some very fun ways of almost like breaking the fourth wall and talking to you about different like philosophical concepts, but in different ways. And it's very cool. Like I've the whole story side of it. I'm so into. I think is brilliant, and I'm even stuff that I don't necessarily like that much. Like the characterization of Odin isn't my favorite, but even that I'm come down on a bit. I'm like, okay, I get why it's like that. And some of the other stuff they've done with the characters, I think are very cool, and I like. And even the little nitpicks, like the fact that your mates talk to you a bit too much and go, maybe try doing this. And you're like, okay, give me a minute. Like even that stuff, it adds to the sense of like camaraderie, and there's people with you and there's people on a journey with you. It's better than if they just shut up and don't say a word.
Yeah.
Kind of a bit shit.
Yeah, there's some things that they do in terms of that I liked how they kind of switched it up from you and Atreus in the first game. Like it is a quality game, and it is worthy of, if we're going back to kind of like the Game Awards stuff, it is worthy of all the nominations that it's going for.
No, absolutely is. Absolutely is.
And I'm really honestly looking forward to seeing the categories that are Elden Ring and God of War, and kind of seeing who comes out on top. Because I've obviously got my ideas. Some may surprise you, but some might not. There we go. I'll just say about Elden Ring, God of War. I cannot. I've not played Elden Ring.
I cannot fathom a world where Elden Ring is better than God of War or considered to be and would beat it in Game of the Year when Elden Ring apparently is very good when it comes to the open world. The combat's really good and all of that. But there is no story. There is no one to talk to outside of the occasional.
There's loads of story. There's loads of people to talk to.
Is there?
Probably about the same amount of people as God of War.
Is there?
Yeah. You both seem to have forgotten something through this whole conversation. I've seen 20 more hours of that video game than you have.
Yes, you have.
You have no idea what's coming.
No idea.
By the way, I'll jump in and say, as the only person that finished God of War Ragnarok, I also think it's a very good game.
Yeah. Well, just because you finished the game, mate, doesn't mean that your opinion is any more valid than ours.
No,
it's significantly more valid than yours. And if you were a critic who wrote a review based on the first 15 hours versus my opinion, which is of course
but we're not critics. We're three assholes with podcast mics.
I wasn't trying to speed past Jamie. I just looked at the time and noticed that we need to rattle through, so which is why I was trying to speed along. Yeah. Also, I'd just like to know that Jamie, never having played any Gotham Knights, was quite happy to wax lyrical about his opinion on that a couple of weeks ago. So take with that.
When you're right, you're right.
Take with that what you will.
When you're right, you're right.
So, okay, so nominations, apart from Elden Ring and Ragnarok, which, both I think are considered, very good from both sets of people. What are your two takes on the other games that are in this category for the Game of the Year?
Interesting, isn't it? Like, I've heard good things about Plague Tale. I've heard really good things about Plague Tale Requiem. Cat Game will win the category for best cat game. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 will win the category for best weeb game.
Stray needs to win like some awards. It needs to win an award at least because that game is like beautifully rendered.
Yeah, but what would win? And this is the problem, right?
This is the best thing I could put Stray forward for would be art direction. But you look at what it's up against, which is Elden Ring, Ragnarok, Forbidden West, and Scorn, and you're like, actually, maybe it can't win that either. Because the sheer volume of art direction and the quality of art direction and again, I'm going to say them again, Elden Ring and Ragnarok is like. You created a post-apocalyptic, neon-drenched, robot populated city that a cat runs around in, and that's great. But like compared to Elden Ring, like it's difficult.
What about best? Is there an award for like best animal movement? There should be.
Actually, I was about to say a spoiler. So
careful.
What would it win that? It probably would.
I liked the animation of the cat very much. I thought it was very cool. And when you get to claw the
Plague Tale Requiem has the best rat animation you'll ever see in your life.
Yeah, the other thing I was thinking is is Tunic technically animal movement? Because that roll was really satisfying, and you could break pots.
If you like rolling.
I just say, I think when I sent a picture of you guys to you guys of the nominees, and the thing I thought at the time is that just I don't know if it was one of those things where it wasn't a good year, or if it just wasn't my year, but my God, is there a drop off when we are looking at again, with all due respect to them, and I haven't played them, I'll say that up front, but when we're looking at a Plague Tale Requiem and Stray, which I have played and finished, as the games we're going to draft in to round out a 6-title long shortlist for the best video game of the year. And it's and don't get me wrong, I look elsewhere at best narrative and best, where are the indie games? And I'm like, okay, Cult of the Lamb was cool, Neon White looked cool, Sifu was cool, Stray, obviously we talked about, Tunic was cool, but it's I felt like we were just one or two really heavy hitters, or at least just big surprises short of rounding out.
Fair. It's a good year. This year, this year should have been better. Let's put it out there. The number of delays and sort of pushes to 2023 have hampered what this year would have been.
Okay, but
we would have been looking at
Starfield would
have been there. What else has been pushed? Redfall,
Hogwarts Legacy. Got
Suicide Squad.
Yes,
I feel like there was a trailer at one point that had the year 2022 on it.
Maybe.
So it should have been a much more rounded year.
Forspoken. That would have of course been racing
wouldn't
away
have winning
every single award.
But I agree with you. It's almost like Elden Ring and God of War are S tier, and then there's no A tier, there's no B tier, and it just goes to C tier. Maybe that's a harsh estimation, but like it's almost like you've got S tier and you've skipped out the A tier and you've gone straight to B tier.
Here's my increasingly unpopular opinion, which apparently happened in 2017 as well, but people are crazy. Horizon Forbidden West is absolutely an A tier game, and like bordering on S, but I'm going to put it in A. And like, I don't know what's happened. I don't know why so many people like to shit on. Like, I don't know why the same thing happened with both Horizons games, which people love it at launch and hate it by the end of the year. But they're wrong. Horizon Forbidden West is a phenomenal video game.
One thing I really enjoyed the short. So I think it's like 8 hours that I spent with Horizon. And the only reason I stopped playing it was because of COVID. I got so fucking ill that I couldn't play it.
Right.
Shit, you never finished. I didn't realize you didn't finish.
I literally couldn't play it. Like I felt so ill when I was playing it that I had to stop, and I couldn't play it for like 2 months, and then
and then you did the Jonesy thing of not picking it up again. Yeah.
No, and then I tried, and then I was like, shit, I don't know where I'm at, I don't know what I'm doing. I've lost where I am in the story and all of that. I do think part of the reason it fell down a little bit in people's estimations is purely because it's like doing more of the same stuff from the original game, and then it was too similar in some respects, and then I think that maybe makes people forget how good it could be. And it's like, right, if that I think does happen sometimes.
Yeah.
It's also just time in the year. Like, I think the later in the year you get, it gets easier to just be in people's minds of like how good something is.
You say that, like Horizon came out like basically the same week as Elden Ring, and it didn't seem to hurt them. So
yeah, but Elden Ring's different group of cats playing it, isn't it? No matter when that came out, they're going to be banging on.
I mean, maybe a different group of cats, but if the sales numbers are anything to go by, there are a lot of those cats.
Yeah.
Well, how many? I'd love to know how many finished it. You know when they give the metrics of who bought versus who finished, and then they say that it's like 30% actually even ever finished games. Is it 30%? I want to say it's 30 to something.
Yeah, and I'd imagine that number is a lot lower for Elden Ring.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. Yeah. Not that matters.
It's a very long video game.
Listen, I just can't wait. Like, I can't wait until either of you dip your toe into Elden Ring. If you do, because I think it's going to be.
I bought the fucker.
Yeah, I know it's there in the background. I've been looking at it since it's fucking perched there. The first fucking podcast, like, I don't know, however many months ago, waiting for you to crack it open. But it's less a case of like me sitting here thinking like, oh, these guys are gonna love it, because I don't fucking know. Like, by all means, you guys are not going to enjoy it. But I'd like you to get stuck into it, give it a fair chance, and then rip into it if you have to, because then at least it's kind of like, I'm just interested in that like formulated opinion.
Yeah.
I tell you what, there's a weird thing though in that. So there was an enemy in God of War that I fought multiple times, and literally I'm pretty sure that unless I won, I was kind of like stuck in a certain area and I couldn't get past this area unless I beat this person.
Oh, so it was a bottleneck, essentially.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
what kind of health bar did they have?
They were like
or were they a mini boss basically?
They were. Yeah. They were mini boss. Yeah.
Okay.
But it was a specific thing.
This might be the one that you were talking about, Jamie. I remember you were saying you were hitting your head against a particular mini boss, right?
The ones that I was hitting my head against were very specifically side content, optional content.
This was side content.
Oh, okay. Then maybe it was.
So it's not a bottleneck.
It took me by surprise. No, it was, because it took me by surprise, and I was like, shit. If I don't do this, am I fucked? Like, can I not do?
Oh, so like, can you not backtrack?
Yeah, like I don't want to give anything away. Exactly. I was like, can I not back? How do I do this if I can't do this? And it was weird. I was like, okay, this is a strange situation. But it took me like 5. I think it took me 5 attempts to defeat them. I know that I'm like, if I was in Elden Ring, I would have been there for 5 days, let alone 5 attempts, and I would have been like, I hate this game.
But in Elden Ring, you can just knock down the difficulty at any time, right? In God of War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can't.
I've never done it. I would never do it.
Yeah. I don't know. I only set it to medium difficulty. I was playing on balance, and I'm like, if I need to knock it off balance, then I'm fucking up.
I thought that I was on medium, and I thought that the side content was harder than the main content, for the same reason that you could say some of 2018's optional content was harder than the main content. And
it was way harder.
Yeah, and it was actually weird, like doing some of that stuff as the story went. That meant that as I got to some of the let's say, more climactic boss fights, they were all one shot. Like, with one exception.
There was, because that was the weird. No, I completely agree with you. There's a weird thing in a couple of times I was like, shit, am I not high enough level yet to do this? A couple of the Rift, for example, the Rifts, I was like, oh, this person killed me in one hit. Maybe I should leave this Rift and come back to it later.
Yeah, those Rifts were crazy.
Damn it.
I did a Rift where I couldn't lower their health bar, and I was like, I'm just not meant to be here.
Right. I couldn't lower theirs, but yeah, they hit me and I died in one hit, and I was like, right. So then I did it 7 times until I did it. Nice. I was like, I'm not leaving until I do it, and then I managed to do it. Anyway, we're gonna have to rattle on because I'm taking too long to talk about God of War again. But the mix of voting, which I always find interesting, is 90% jury and 10% fan on the coming up Game Awards, which I always think is like a weird thing. Like, what's the point in even having the fan?
I think it's there to just kind of like tip the scales if it's like a stalemate in a way, and then you just go for the popular vote, right?
Oh yeah, who better to invite into the voting proceedings than the people who think that Sonic Frontiers is better than Elden Ring?
If that's what it is,
not badly that's done. I need to play that game. I really want to just see.
Well, your kids will lap it up. So like that's the excuse that you can always use. It's like, I got it for my kids. Like, you know,
they do want it. They've seen. Do you know what's funny? They want that, but they also want something else, which came out.
Elden Ring, get it for them.
Pokemon Violet or Scarlet. They want both of those games.
Yeah. I can't wait to sign on to PSN over Christmas to see that Jonesy woke up on Christmas morning just to play his kids' copy of Sonic Frontiers.
Yes, absolutely. Well, okay, look, we got like 5 minutes. Do you want to quickly touch on Pokemon?
Let's call it 10 to 15 minutes if we need it. I can.
Okay.
All right, cool. So, yes, I'm sure many people listening, and I'm sure many more listening, will not have heard that people are not that impressed with the current crop. I say crop, is to a crop of Pokemon games. Yeah. They have been slammed for their performance, their technical issues, their crap textures, just generally everything bad you could want to hear about a game seems to have been levied.
Oh, man.
Which is weird, because Pokemon games are always like this to some degree. Maybe not with the technical difficulties.
Yeah, this is the thing, and again, it's like it's the capital G gamer thing of being like stuck in your social media echo chamber, right? But looking at some of the Twitter stuff of the glitches that people have been getting on Pokemon, it is like, how did this game come out? But you know, it's probably like a small percentage, to be fair.
I think glitches is surprising. I don't think. I've not seen many glitches on Pokemon games like that.
But even like performance, like I heard that there's a memory dump bug in the game. Like I feel like a lot of the stuff that they are experiencing, they can potentially patch out given the time. But just as
that's the big thing, yeah.
Yeah, but I think the fact is that like it's a mainline Pokemon game. And I think I was reading somewhere that like mainline Pokemon titles come out every 3 years or 4 years, like clockwork. So clearly they were hitting a very specific target to get this game out. And the other thing I was reading was that Pokemon Company, what they like to do is every entry, they shuffle their team. So you'll never have like the same art director or this, that, the other, and it kind of like shuffles around. And from what this, I can't remember, it was some article, was saying that effectively what could happen there is you don't necessarily always get the right people in the right position in the job.
It sounds like Jesus. It sounds like politics, like MPs getting given jobs in cabinet when you're like,
in a way. But like, I feel that like for Japanese companies, it's actually worked really well for them. Like you think of like Nintendo, it works really well for them. Like if they didn't have that kind of culture, more so than any other place in the world that I have heard of, then you wouldn't get necessarily your Shigeru Miyamoto's or your Eiji Aonuma's kind of going to the forefront and kind of smashing a series, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like it's a good way to find, good talent that you wouldn't have found otherwise, for sure.
Like ultimately, these are very talented people, but it's just a question of like, if they are pushed out of their comfort zone and not given the time to get comfortable in it, sometimes, I'm not saying that this is that particular instance, but sometimes what happens is you get products like this.
And you talk about that comfort zone changing and just how quickly it changed. Like, no matter what was happening in the rest of the industry and what the kind of the standard or the bar was for open world RPGs or open world JRPGs, fundamentally this is a series that first experimented with open world, like 3D open worlds, in a small way in Sword and Shield. Elaborated on that, but in a very sparse and very basic way in in Legends Arceus, which came out earlier this year.
Yeah.
Crazy to remember that. And now they're going full-on mainline Pokemon series using everything that they've kind of slowly learned and implemented. And I know it's easy to look at some of the other, look at what open world RPGs have become since the series started. And yes, they did need to move away from that kind of that model they were stuck in with the four-way directional movement and so on and so forth. Like, they needed to move away from that. They moved away from that in a big way with none of the kind of the time and the learnings that other studios would have had. And I think they've paid the price for it. And so there's a part of me that gets it. Like, by all means, make your tweet where you put a screenshot of this next to a screenshot of Xenoblade Chronicles or a screenshot of Breath of the Wild, and we can all have a good laugh. But there's also a part of me that just feels a bit sorry for, kind of like what Chris said, what probably are a lot of talented, hardworking people working on ridiculous schedules where games have to come out and the goalposts moved for them in terms of the game they were trying to make very quickly. And, it's hard to get from 0 to 100 that quickly sometimes. And it's a bummer because I look at this and I'm like, oh, this is the Pokemon game I always knew I wanted. Because you could hold a Game Boy Color back in the day and look at Pokemon and say, God, imagine what this will look like when I'm actually going out and exploring a fully open, world in 3D and so on and so forth, and randomly and genuinely engaging and coming across Pokemon. Like, they got there, and it's a shame that it's as sort of fucked up as it is, and it does seem pretty fucked up.
Is this Nintendo / Game Freak's Cyberpunk 2077 moment?
Well, it's interesting you say it, Chris, because in 20 years, this is the lowest critically rated mainline Pokemon game that they've had. And I think 100% it is their Cyberpunk moment.
Which, ironically, by the way, for anyone, is in like the high 70s, which tells you how consistently praised, for better or for worse, this series has been.
I think you nailed it though, Jamie. Like you were saying, when back in the day when you held a Game Boy Color and you were like where I want Pokemon to go. I think the issue that Game Freak have had and like the Pokemon games have had is you kind of just assume that when they wanted to make the switch, because other companies have made the switch and do like full on open world games, 3D, they do everything already. You just assume that Game Freak can do it as well. But that doesn't work like that. Like realistically, they're probably having to learn everything that other companies have learned on their way up, so it's not easy to just turn around and do it. And
but
a lot of people have said it's Game Freak and their ability, and that's the problem, and the fact that they're not capable of producing.
Yeah, and the other kind of elephant in the room, which I don't kind of prescribe to myself, but a lot of people kind of look at Game Freak and Pokemon as a brand, as like this really highly successful thing, raking in millions upon millions upon millions. And it's like, you've got all the money in the world. And how can you let it get to this? I don't think that way. I think it's a lot more kind of like difficult and nuanced to kind of be that reductive. But
can I throw them a bone quickly?
A Cubone.
If you look at, it could be.
Sure.
Look at Disney. Disney, who own Marvel, produced a game, for consoles in Marvel's Avengers that should have had. If they have all the money in the world, they have no excuse to not look at what other games have done and produce a game that was absolutely fantastic.
But that's a bit different, though, right? Because Disney
produced a piece of shit.
But Disney were the IP holder, not the developer. The developer was
and also having
no. But what I'm saying is, if the money means that it's good, then the argument that therefore Pokemon good, it doesn't stand. It just doesn't hold up.
But also, having all the money in the world doesn't mean you're going to spend all the money in the world. And
true. Of course.
There are still going to be budgets assigned to these things, and I think the more I think about this particular issue, the more I worry that this is a sort of a mashup of all of the issues that are being talked about. Like, this is partly Game Freak and their ability to ramp up in line with the way the series has expanded and the development requirements have expanded. Partly the Pokemon Company and the kind of the leash that everyone under them is kept on with regards to how they can use the IP and the timelines on which these games have to be developed on, and maybe even the budgets with which they need to be developed on. And then lastly, also partly the Switch, which is just, it's by modern standards is not a sufficiently powerful console for big open world JRPGs.
Can I give you a damning tweet?
Sorry, just a second. What is, like, the Switch is 5 years old now?
It would turn 6 like in a few months, I think, right? Because it came out early 2017.
Yeah.
And like we're getting to the point now where if you throw this in with Bayonetta 3, we're now getting to the stage where there are critically acclaimed games. Well, in the case of Bayonetta, at least critically acclaimed games, and in the case of this, games I should want to play that I'm looking at and going like, I don't know if I'm blowing the dust off my Switch for this. To get hand cramps and use the world's smallest analog sticks just to play a game at 480p at 27 frames a second. And
by the way, 3rd of March 2017.
So there you go,
Yeah, and it makes me worried for what was it? Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah,
you say that, but Breath of the Wild is still one of, as dumb as it sounds, because it's got the same birthday as the Switch itself, still one of the standout lookers and players.
On the Switch
of the entire console, it's still the game that you tell people to buy the Switch with, and it was the launch title. You know, it's crazy.
But I think Chris's point that was 5 years ago. But if you can have the same opinion if a game comes out looking the same now, I think the answer is
well. It's going to be interesting, right? Because it almost full circle takes us back to the God of War thing. Because I said, hey, if in a generation, maybe it's okay, even though, you know. So
you're saying that even though the gap is longer, God of War was 4 years, this will be 6 years, because it's on the same console, it might not be held to for you the same standards as God of War was with regards to the amount of technical, and not just technical, but also gameplay improvements and innovations that need to be made.
Potentially.
Because Lord knows that series doesn't have a fucking story to rely on.
Yeah, no, and that's
Chris is saying it gets a pass because it's what it is.
No, I'm saying it doesn't get a pass at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'm saying that's why I preface all of this by saying I'm concerned for Tears of the Kingdom, right? Like, it does make it a bit better being on the same system though, but not by much.
Because you assume that they're limited by the abilities of the system. I think one of the weird things is, like as Jamie said, it was a launch game at the beginning of the system, and what we normally talk about is, especially with like Xbox and PlayStation, is you've got to give them an amount of time to fully appreciate the abilities of the system.
It's actually hard, right? Because technically,
I know what you're gonna say.
Yeah, technically, it's a fucking Wii U title.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's even older.
But then that goes for Ragnarok as well, where if you listen to the developers call Ragnarok a PS4 game on PS5.
Yes. Yeah.
Not the other way around.
Which is, to be fair, like it is a PS4 game that feels like it's had a PS5 patch when you play it on the PS5.
I think the main issue, probably with both games, is that when they came out, okay, so talking about Breath of the Wild and God of War 2018, when they came out, they were the pinnacle of what they were doing on their consoles, right? And it's almost like you've got a limited pitch in which to put those goalposts, and they fucking put them almost like plonk them right at the end. And it's almost like, well, where do you go from there? Because, you know, there's not much more room to kind of innovate or progress unless it's a brand new generation, in which case you give another field. It's my metaphor, you know. I like my stupid metaphors, but you should get one.
I know what you mean.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
It is funny. I was thinking as I was playing Ragnarok, I did think. I was watching someone play it, and they were criticizing the proximity of the camera to Kratos, which made me kind of laugh to myself because I loved the original trilogy of God of War. Like, I thought it was fantastic. And when they brought out God of War 2018, I remember thinking, all they've done is move the camera, and now everyone's like jizzing because they're like, oh, look how close the camera is. This game is amazing. And I'm like, dude, I was there before it was popular, like back in the day when it was like 30 feet above you. And I was playing God of War, and I thought, I wonder what this would play like Ragnarok. I wonder what this would look and play like if you could badly. And if someone was like, oh, we need a mod where you can back the camera up, and then they end up so you've got the camera in the same position as it used to be. I was like, that'd be so funny if it goes full circle, because people are moaning about like indicators for enemies and stuff. And
but some people do that, right? Like I saw there was, and these are more like those YouTube modders that they kind of say like, oh, this is what Resident Evil Village would look like with Resident Evil 1's camera system. And you're like, right. I actually kind of dig it. Like I wouldn't want to play it. But as a video on YouTube, I like it. There was one that was like an isometric view of, the best one I saw was an isometric view of Elden Ring. And I was like, damn, that looks fucking sick, actually.
Yeah, I could see that, yeah. I can see it with God of War as well. With the exception of aiming the axe throwing, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that would suck.
You'd have to have a lock-on system.
Lock-on system.
That's exactly what I was thinking. You'd have to have a lock-on.
Or you play with the mouse and keyboard.
Yeah, I'll give you a mean tweet in respect to Nintendo or Pokemon even, just because I saw this in the week and I thought that is pretty harsh, but fair. I'm sure fair. This is coming in from Alana Pierce, the lovely Alana Pierce, who said, "It's inexcusable how poorly Pokemon games run and how dated they look, especially considering Pokemon is the single highest grossing franchise of all time." And as someone who works for a Sony company, in that world, I was like, that is pretty fucking damning. So
yeah, no, I mean, I get where she's coming from. Like I said earlier, I don't think there's necessarily a one-to-one analog between the amount of money you are A, making or B, have, and C, the amount of money you're going to be spending on a product. I think that's assuming all the money you have is all the money you can spend on your next project is a very quick way to run out of all the money you have.
Absolutely.
But I do get where she's coming from.
Yeah, I think the problem is like, it feels like every time a Pokemon game, with the exception of maybe new Pokemon Snap or whatever it was fucking called, it just felt that like every time a new Pokemon game was announced, whether it be like a mainline title or a side title, it was always asterisked with like some things. Like there's always a caveat. Like you look at Let's Go Eevee, it's like, oh yeah, but that's like, it's like taking mobile sensibilities of a fucking game and popping into an actual title. You look at Arceus, and it's like, oh yeah, but it's like it's very stripped back, and you're filling out the Pokédex.
You're so right. You say what it is, and then you describe why it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And it's almost like there's always been a problem, and from like I think it was Sword and Shield, like, oh, but yeah, they're just like getting rid of half the Pokédex, and it's always something. And I think the problem with Game Freak and the Pokemon Company is very much a case of saying, why for one of the biggest franchises in the world does it keep on happening? Not that it happens on a case-by-case basis, but why does it keep on happening? Why isn't there never, how have they never cracked it that they release a product that's like, yes, this is perfect for the standard of what it should be?
Yes. No, I get what you mean. Can I float a possible opinion and that this might, and a positive? Maybe the reason they do that and they get away with it is because we, as the audience, are the enablers, and we do not hold them to account enough. But actually, fucking up seemingly as they have on Scarlet and Violet, we maybe will not enable them as much as we have been in the past, and they will be held to account a bit, and they will have to answer some tough questions, and it might actually push the Nintendo company a different direction and make them say, no, we need to put out a better product. We need to do better in future.
It's always very hard to know how the lessons are being learned, especially with sales data. I mean, I haven't seen any yet, but I'm sure that this game will be a phenomenally, successful product for them, because it's still going to be on store shelves and kids are still going to want it for Christmas. And I'm in the know, quote unquote, and I still kind of want it. Just to see it for myself, and because I love Pokemon games, so it's difficult, Yeah.
I think it boils down for a lot of people is a case of it just goes from potentially a day one purchase to I'll wait a few months and then I'll get it. Do you know what I mean?
And it'll still be full price.
Yeah, I mean,
because that's what Nintendo do. But
that's why they're the if your mum buys it for you. That's a little life hack.
There you go. Yeah, cool.
Well, thank you so much for joining me this week, guys. Thank you for humouring me wanting to talk about God of War Ragnarok as well, because I didn't get to last week. I hope I didn't bore the audience too much with some repetitiveness.
Nah, not at all, Putin. Sorry, I mean, Jonesy. Nah, you're all good, mate. Please don't send the KGB.
Yeah, all that remains to say is thank you so much to our Patreons once again for joining us over at patreon.com/SuperShow and supporting us. If you're watching this on YouTube and you would like to watch on a podcast platform, we're also on podcast platforms in audio form and vice versa. So do check us out in one of the many ways that you can. Leave a comment down below, drop a like, a rating if you're on a podcasting platform. All of it helps. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.